The solar system has trillions of objects in it. This is an undersold, underappreciated, awesome fact about the solar system. It's just got lots of things in it. Way more than the typical 8 that we tend to focus on. So we're going to take a quick walk, if you like, through the solar system. But if you leave right now, I'd like you to just absorb and look up on your own the fact that there are lots of things in the solar system. Like millions of asteroids, like trillions of comets, 200 plus moons, lots of different things. 300 robots that humans have sent up to poke around. Just lots of stuff. So we're going to take a walk through, and I guess we'll start with what is it, where is it? We'll just position it a little bit. So there are 4 arms in the Milky Way galaxy, and one of them is called the Orion arm, and that arm has the solar system. It's moving around the Milky Way about 550,000 miles per hour, and it orbits the center of the Milky Way roughly once every 230 million years. So to get a sense of the distances that we're going to look at in the solar system, we need to familiarize ourselves with a concept called AU. It's a measure of distance, as in AU, how far into the solar system are you? It stands for astronomical unit, and it means the distance between the Earth and the Sun. A reasonable place to start, right? So obviously the Earth is 1 AU from the Sun. That means Venus and Mercury are less than 1 AU from the Sun, and Mars is a little bit more than 1. It's about another 0.6 AU from us, if we were lined up, which usually we're not. So in the center of the solar system, you've got obviously the sun. That's obviously most of the solar system's mass. We've talked about that elsewhere. Then you've got your 4 bingo rocky planets. This is where a lot of human activity happens in the 21st century and the early 22nd. But at the edge of it is the beginning of sort of the next phase of human interaction with the solar system. So Mercury, then Venus, then Earth, then Mars, then the asteroid belt. You may have heard of this. It's that thing the Millennium Falcon flies through. Well, it's like that anyway. And funnily, it's one of 2 big asteroid belts in the system. So after the next 4 planets, the gas giants, you get to the next asteroid belt, which is called the Kuiper belt. And that's also got a whole bunch of comets in it, as well as meteoroids. And then you have a whole bunch of freaking nothing, and then a sphere around the whole big caboodle called the Oort cloud. Why call it that? Why not? Just kidding. It was named for Jan Oort, a Dutch star guy in the 1950s. Okay, so Sun, 4 rocky planets, asteroid belt, 4 gas giants, Kuiper belt, lots of space, Oort cloud. And again, the Oort cloud is a sphere. All those other things are on a spinning disk, more or less, roughly-ish. Let's talk about some of the awesome objects in this solar system. Obviously, your 8 planets, they're fantastic. Zooming in on the asteroids, they're also really interesting. So in the asteroid belt, you've got 1 to 2 million asteroids that are bigger than a kilometer. The biggest is called Vesta. It's about 330 miles around and 530 kilometers around. But all the asteroids together still add up to less mass than Earth's moon. So it's a lot of stuff, but it's not a ton of mass spread out over a relatively wide area. There's a lot of variation in here, which is super cool. Like some of these asteroids have moons, and some of them orbit each other in binary systems, and some of them orbit each other and a friend in trinary systems. So they're doing lots of cool things. They're in lots of different shapes, and they've got lots of different qualities. There also are lots of meteoroids in here. Quick side note, a meteoroid can become a meteor when it goes through the atmosphere, and if it lands, it will be a meteorite. So meteoroid becomes a meteor, and what's left is a meteorite. Also in the picture, obviously, are icy bodies known as comets. These mostly come from the Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud. The Kuiper belt produces short orbit comets, short as in less than 200 years, and the Oort cloud produces the long orbit comets, we think, as in orbits of more than 200 years. There are an awful lot of comets. Like, it's estimated in the 2020s that there are more than 1 trillion comets just in the Kuiper belt. So there are certainly likely to be trillions and trillions of comets in the Oort cloud, because the Oort cloud is quite big and quite far away. So to get a sense of that scale, let's return to the AU. 1 to 2 AU, that's the 4 rocky bodies. Then you've got the asteroid belt. and the four gas giants, that's the next like 25 to 30 AU, and then at 30 the Kuiper belt begins. So 30 to 50 AU is the Kuiper belt, which then sort of deteriorates into the spinning disk of extra stuff, and then it's not until a couple thousand AU later that you get to the Oort cloud, which extends as far as 10 or even 100,000 AU away. That's getting close to like a quarter of the way to Alpha Centauri. So the Oort cloud is very big and it's very far away. And to get one quick sense of that, the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 probes, which left in 1977 and have theoretically in the 2010s-ish, they entered interstellar space outside sort of the sun's heliospheric protection. That took about 35, 38 years, respectively. They would need another 300 years to get to the Oort cloud, at which point they could well have disintegrated or been eaten by space birds or just sort of poofed out of existence for other reasons we don't understand. We're probably going to lap those, like in the 2120s we have much better propulsion, so we've actually got things that are closer to the Oort cloud than the Voyager probes. But even in the 2120s, the Oort cloud is still very far away, so we're not fully colonizing it yet. We've sent some things out with our sort of like super duper fast travel, but we're not like, you know, mining the Oort cloud in the 2120s. In the 2120s, we are all over the Kuiper belt and the asteroid belt and the inner system, and a lot of that exploration's been happening under the jurisdiction of independent bodies out in space, unmanned self-replicating probes, unhumaned organizations that are doing their own mining, independent from political agencies centered on Earth or even Jupiter, which has become another power center. What else would you like to know? It would be really helpful if you have any parts of this story that you'd like to zoom in on, if you could ask it, and we will address that in the comments, or we'll even do more of a deep dive focus thing on this. I've got a few other random facts in case you're interested. Pluto is at the outside edge of the Oort cloud, of the Kuiper belt, and inside the Kuiper belt there are the other four dwarf planets, you're calling them. So you've got 5 dwarf planets in the 2020s. We consider a few more objects to be dwarf planets in the 2120s. They are all in that zone of the Kuiper belt, where there's an awful lot of quite big stuff. Like there are hundreds of thousands of objects that are more than 100 kilometers in diameter. So that's, you know, a bigger playground for bigger things. Obviously not as big as full-on planets, sorry Pluto, but still pretty chunky, pretty relevant, pretty like, say, place you could set up a space pirate base. You've got Ceres, Eris, Pluto, Maki, and Haumea, as in how may I help you understand the solar system further? Really should have stopped and not done that, but I did it anyway. So asteroids, millions of them, comets, trillions of them, at least 200 moons, asteroids with moons, asteroids orbiting each other, plus your 8 classic edition planets. That's an awful lot of stuff. What are we doing at the bleeding edge in the 2120s? We're building infrastructure to get people from the inner parts of the solar system to the outer parts of the solar system. And what that looks like is sort of train-like things to which you can attach spacecraft for a boost along rail to accelerate you to the speeds you need to get closer to the Oort cloud or into the reaches of the Kuiper belt. There's a lot of mining happening in the asteroid belt in the 2120s, but you'll be doing that fairly soon. In the 2020s, you're already developing that technology, so maybe that's a good thing to talk about next. Tell us, really, it would be very helpful if you could tell us what you are interested in learning more about in the course of these next 100 years while you're building civilization into the stars. Thank you and happy futuring. Bye.